Adult children of helicopter parents, how do you deal with them now? They say things, and I just kinda go MHMMM like I'm agreeing that I will do those things, but never verbally say I will do those things. Same, it's easier to lie and agree than to tell the truth and spend next half hour listening to a monologue. Still live with parents. I avoid their invasive questions, but I'm pretty honest about everything I do choose to share with them. My siblings and I are whole adults, so they try to be less insane these days. Funny, I guess. Story though. The other day my sister and I were watching Pulp Fiction and my dad waltzed in our room, stared at the TV for a second and goes, "That movie is for grown-ups." My sister said, "I'm 25. This sounds like my life and exactly something my dad would say to me." My dad was never a helicopter parent. He was actually the complete opposite. My mom was a super helicopter parent. When I was a sophomore in high school, I got grounded from everything. I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. I had to go to school and come home. I couldn't watch TV unless it was about God. I didn't have a phone or computer and couldn't listen to music for months. It got worse and worse as time went on. She would give me a curfew randomly one day and it would be different the next day. I would get in trouble for not following a curfew I had no idea existed. She gaslighted me so much that I often felt like I deserved what was happening to me. After going to therapy, I am better able to identify her abusive and bipolar tendencies. I'm working on minimizing contact with her. So, whenever she's being a pain in my butt, I just tell her to frick off. They still helicopter me. Actually, now more than ever that I'm 24 and I'm not sure what suddenly turned the dial up. However, I'm finally planning on moving out for good this year with my boyfriend. Every time I bring it up, they don't believe me or they think I'm kidding and say it isn't happening. Oh well, I did tell them. I guess they'll get a reality check when the time comes and it won't be on me. They turned the dial up because you are moving out and they are losing control. Keep your exact plans to yourself until the last minute. My feeling is they will do everything they can to sabotage it for you. Visit our bin and make sure you have all your documents safe somewhere and no bank accounts still available to them. I just say no when I'm told to do something or follow a rule. I don't give a reason, even when I'm asked why. It's satisfying. I don't. I'm not NC with them, but I'm absolutely firm on my boundaries and standing up for myself, and I don't let their tantrums sway me. On the other hand, the pressure does eat at me, but I'll never let them know that. Sounds smart. In reality, no one has control over you unless physical or financial. If you can overcome physical or create a barrier and remove and financial, then you golden pony boy. My parents tried for 17 years, took a licking sometimes, but they know they have zero say. My parents weren't, but a friend moved to a different state and got engaged, and my friend's mom still managed to be a helicopter parent, visiting at least 3 times a month and contacting either her or her so constantly. It ruined the engagement because the so finally had enough, because even though my friend was annoyed with her mom as well, she couldn't cut her mom off completely. I DK all the details, but it must have been super annoying if someone was like, "I love you," but frick having in-laws like this. She is now single and has moved back home. It's unfortunate. Mission accomplished. Honestly, me and my husband are trying to figure this out. My mill is a total helicopter parent. If one of us, me, my husband, or his brother, doesn't respond to her messages within an hour or two, she'll bombard the other two about where we are if something happened to us. She freaked out on me when I didn't respond to her after 3 hours. We were doing a cross-country drive, and accused me of trying to shut her out and said we're never going to be a real family because of the walls I've built up around myself. I don't know what to do. My husband won't stand up to her as much as I want him to, but I can't do this for the rest of my life. We have to establish some boundaries, but it's not my mom, so I can't be the one to initiate. I am low contact. A lot of us go low or no contact. I ignore them. To be honest, it's also because I'm in a different city and have a hectic job. But there was also a period of slowly getting them used to the fact that they would not know and control every detail of my adult life. Hold on, let me go ask my mom. I had to be extremely mean and blunt with my mom. I'm a mid-30s married man. and had to straight up tell her that I have a family and my own life and she needs to go get a hobby or take classes or anything whatsoever that will give her a sense of value, because I do not need a goddamn interfering invasive mother any longer. When she started giving me either the "that's so horrible you'd talk to your mother that way" or the "oh no my kids don't need me anymore," I literally flat out had to just say, "I don't give a crap mom. Go work it out." I had to be super mean to her about it. Sometimes parents have to cut their children off, and sometimes children have to cut their parents off. Doesn't make me feel good, but I sleep fine. My parents weren't that bad, but they were quite overprotective. After I turned 21, I still wasn't allowed out after dark and all that jazz. Had to let them know where I was going and who I was seeing in case I was murdered. What I did was move to another continent. I talk to them every couple of weeks over WhatsApp voice chat. They try and tell me what to do sometimes and I'm just like, okay, and don't do it. Having an early evening curfew as an adult is pretty bad. The way that I got my mom to chill out on me was to tell her that I wanted to go to a college out of state. That was the moment she realized she wasn't going to be protective of me forever, and it took her a long time to accept it. As of now, she's been a little easier on me, though she still sometimes treats me like a child. If I'm out of state, then I just limit contact with her and don't call home often. I think a lack of contact is the best everyone with helicopter parents can do initially, because it's just so refreshing to be by yourself with nobody breathing on your neck after so long. My brother and I had no free time allowed growing up, just music and homework allowed. Age 30 plus, my dad has passed away now. He was never the problem, but my mom still does her best to control our lives, inserting herself into situations she doesn't belong, and passive-aggressively putting us in situations that she wants to happen. But cutting her off or telling her she's overstepping makes us the bad ones in her mind. Edited for clarity, so minimal contact and details are all that's on the menu for her from me now. My brother doesn't get it though, giving her minute details and then getting annoyed when she thinks she can have a say in how he lives his life. Stone cold boundaries and a residence more than 1,000 miles away. I too have skipped town. Just wanna note that having boundaries is paramount for this method to work. My husband deals with this with his mother. We make decisions as a married couple, then later everything changes after they talk to each other. Even situations dealing with our daughter, like I have no say even when he and I were on the same page before decisions were put into action. He is so desperate to please his mom he turns his back on me. When I confront him he blames me for causing drama or being petty. IDK his mom acts like she is his wife and he lets it happen. It grosses me out. My parents track my location at all times now. I'm 27. That way they don't call the cops if I don't pick up within 30 minutes, which has happened multiple times. Sweet Jesus, you've got to be kidding. Unfortunately, the helicopter behavior continued after I got married and had children. Eventually, the only way to gain control was to go no contact. Yikes, what do I do now? 1. I move to a different country. 2. I do not go back to visit. 3. When they come visit they stay in a hotel. 4. My husband, who was not raised in an overbearing environment, is always present when they visit. He serves as a reality check and is effective in shutting down misbehavior. 5. I am going to have to explain one day that they won't be allowed unsupervised visits with any children I have. You'd think at some point they'd take the hint and examine their own behavior. It was a nice sense of relief to get out of the house. To put it into perspective, here's some of the stuff that was common in my house. 8:30 bedtime. No shooting games allowed. I could only ever play Minecraft with my friends. Could not close doors other than bathroom. Could not lock bathroom doors. Could not spend your own money without parents' approval first. Could not play on computer unless they were home. Obviously this rule got broken a lot. No social media at all. The one that got me the most though was until high school we could only have sleepovers at our house and could not go to most birthday parties. Getting out of the house to stay with someone else for a little was an absolute godsend. I love being independent and stupid with my money and being able to play whatever games I want when I want. So yeah, that's kinda what it's like. I ended up having to remove my parents from my life and at first it was really hard. But seriously, they've controlled every aspect of it. When I was a kid, my internet time was limited and supervised. I was allowed like an hour a day on electronics. I wasn't allowed to play any violent video games. I really only played Mario Kart. I wasn't allowed to play Pokemon because it had evolution in it. I wasn't allowed to read Harry Potter because it was magic and magic is bad. They decided which college I went to when I was 18. They decided which degree I got. When I was struggling to find work, they pushed me to go into a field I didn't want to, which I am now stuck in. When I was sick as well, it was really rare I went to the doctor. At one point I was dying from a bad case of pneumonia and they refused to hospitalize me even though I was almost dead. Quite literally, my lungs were full of fluid and my oxygen level was running at 82%. Even on oxygen that number didn't go up. Once I moved out of my house, I started to talk to them less until last year I finally just decided to cut them off. Talking to them gave me anxiety and they always tried to steer my life a different direction. So I figured it was better to cut them off completely. At first it was hard, but it's gotten easier over time. They pushed me to go into a field I didn't want to, which I am now stuck in. I am in a situation where I meet lots of people who have made very dramatic career changes. I myself have done the same. You're not stuck. It might be hard, depending on circumstances, but it can be done. My mother made my bank accounts, insurances, even my mobile phone contract when I was underage and just kept them. I also think she stole money from me, but that's another story. She said I wasn't able to manage this kind of stuff by myself. With the help of I took everything back from her when I was 26. When I visited her, she tried to pressure me into stuff again, so I threatened her that I would pack my stuff and leave immediately and that she would never see me or talk to me ever again in her life. These two things were kind of wake-up calls for her. Now she is so afraid that I could really go no contact that she keeps her stupid mouth shut. More often than not, power is a mind game. Someone only has power over you if you believe they do. It's an incredibly satisfying moment when you realize you can flip the game back on them. They tried to ground me after I came back from serving in the Marine Corps. Tried to take the keys to the car I own and prevent me from getting an education. Told my mom she can pound dirt and my dad that if he didn't fix himself and nut up to my overbearing mom, I'd never talk to the two of them again. Got in my car and drove off. Was homeless for a minute until I got enough for an apartment. You'd think that me moving out and being homeless instead of living with them would be the thing that made things click. About a year after my move out, I'd reconnected with my family and agreed to take my mom to her aerobics class one day since her car was in the shop. Well, I drive about 10 minutes before she lays into me about my life choices, etc. I pulled the car over, looked at her and said, "Get out." She looked stunned. I just repeated myself and added, "Now." She got out. I drove off to my apartment, played some CSGO, and she got her much needed exercise. I started standing up for myself and telling them off, but I also struggle with being self-sufficient, especially with ADHD, so it's a vicious cycle, especially when I can't afford to move out. Standing up for things they don't agree with is pretty useless. I got yelled at for politely requiring consent every time my mom logs into my university student email account to help me manage my stuff. Plus she doesn't even do it when she grudgingly agreed after she was done being offended. I remember her announcing to me over dinner she had gone in my account and enrolled me in a class for my bachelor's without asking me first while I was away at school. As an adult, this makes me very uncomfortable. It's hard when kids have high needs to work out when they need no help, a bit of help, when they need scaffolding around something so they can do it themselves or mostly themselves, and when they just can't do it. It isn't always helicoptering then. However, changing your classes without asking is just crazy. My parents weren't really helicopter parents until I was in high school, and then it was freaking insane. I was in high school about 10 years ago now, but cell phones were the norm. Access to social media was pretty regular, etc. My parents responded to one of my not so great moments as a 17-year-old by taking away my phone, only letting me use my computer in the same room as them with the screen facing them at all times, would pick me up and drop me off from school, wouldn't let me visit my friends and would only let approved friends come to my house, installed cameras throughout the house so that when they weren't there they could make sure I wasn't going anywhere, etc. We're actually good now. I think once I went to college and then subsequently dropped out and took a couple years off. They realized the hyper-attentiveness wasn't what I needed and only made me pull away more. Additionally, it probably helped that they saw me go through relatively difficult situations entirely on my own. There's a mutual respect now, ease of communication, and just general comfort I never knew growing up. All that being said, I would never recommend parents of high school children act like mine did. If you want your children to trust you and be honest, you need to show them that you are willing to trust them. Also, my parents were freaking letting me run around alone through the city for most of my youth, and so the sudden dictatorial behavior was super startling and made me rebel more. What the heck did you do to cause all of that? As a son, M25 of 2 enormous helicopter parents, all I can say is that I too wish to know lol. In Asia we call them parents. I am so scared my kid will feel I'm micromanaging him because he's with his dad every other week and they treat him as an adult because he's the oldest kid in that household. I give him privacy and trust and responsibilities, but he's lazy and doesn't manage on his own because he barely tries. You all gave me a lot to think about. Give them responsibilities. Let them make mistakes. To a point. Help when they ask for it. Some learn faster than others. Some never learn. I went no contact almost a year ago. Has been the best piece in my adult life. I got married and moved halfway across the country. We didn't talk and she didn't even know what town we lived in for 6 months. I think she realized that if you treat your child like they're stupid or incapable without you, they won't want to have a relationship anymore. My siblings have life so much easier now, so that makes up for it a little. They have friends. They don't have to make plans a week in advance so she can think about giving them permission. They actually have freaking hobbies that make them happy. She's now the kind of mom I wish I had growing up, and while it does sting a little, I'm glad for them. Move to a different country. Keep contact to a minimum. I mentioned having helicopter parents at one of my family gatherings. Parents were inside. Without missing a beat, my uncle corrected me saying helicopter parents, PFFT, more like AC 130 parents. To get them off back, I went the hard route of years of disappointing them till they just stopped giving a frick. Do not recommend this route. Probably the best advice here. I'm a 35-year-old female IT project manager making 6 figures for the last 7 years. My mother was an elementary school teacher, but mostly a stay-at-home mom. When my dad died, she moved close to me. I like knowing I am her go-to person, and know I can do anything she needs I don't want to. She is forever giving me career advice, without having any idea what it is like in my field in this century. I keep reminding her that she has no concept of my world. I was and am deeply empathetic to teachers, but she will never understand being a new analyst, racking a data center, or developing an algorithm to save a client $4 million a year. She doesn't see how hard I work mentally and emotionally to then run off to Vegas for a weekend. Not exactly the same thing, but I'm in my late 30s and a scientist. I hate when family members try to tell me about science. My dad's wife has some very strange ideas, presumably from Facebook, about nutrition, cancer, spices, anything really. She then tries to teach me. I'm a biochemistry professor. Well, my mother flew a Eurocopter S-350 and did paid tours of New York City, New York. My father flew a Bell UH-1 Iroquois during a deployment to Afghanistan. My father is a retired veteran running his own bait and tackle shop, and my mom still does occasional tours from their house in upstate New York. They are both lovely and I adore them dearly. Thanks for asking. Well, not the answer I was expecting, but you answered my question. I grew up understanding their overprotective ways weren't good for my development when I get over. Boy, I did not know or could comprehend how much they held me back in life until I got older and out of the house. I don't fault them though. I grew up in the South in a very Christian household in a small town. My family was only doing what they thought was best for me. I see a lot of people on Reddit call their parents toxic and hate them, but I don't have those feelings toward mine. I feel like my family had good intentions, but the way they went about it wasn't correct. I can't blame my family for that because they was only acting how they knew to, especially in a world where they don't understand. I'm 7 months pregnant and my mom had effectively bubble wrapped me as a child and stunted my social skills quite harshly growing up. My mom keeps trying to insert herself into my doctor's appointments and barge into my house when my nursery furniture arrived, though she paid for it. My husband and I simply avoid telling her things and firmly try to explain to her that she can't throw a tantrum when she doesn't get her way, and if she keeps at it she will be ejected from our life. I think not letting her pay for things might be a good first step. It got better when I started college, which was really surprising to me. We have a really good relationship now and I've forgiven her for preventing me from making any kind of strong connections with friends. She didn't really let me hang out with friends outside of school except like one girl BC. They were very close with her parents and all of my boyfriends for some reason, so I ended up having a lot of boyfriends lol. Besides that, she is a great mom. My older sister still resents her though, even though she has apologized for it. My mom definitely has a sort of extreme anxiety paranoia that went without help or her even realizing it until I talked with her about it one day. I try to help her as much as I can whenever she is feeling that way, and she's making a visible effort to try and change. It's very hard of course, but I have seen a lot of progress. Well, my brothers are 10 years older than me and they both moved out as soon as they could. One dropped out of high school at 17 and the other joined the Navy at 18. They both have little to no contact with my parents. I am currently 19 and in college. I can't do much because I live with them still and it sucks. They aren't as bad as they used to be, but it's definitely stifling. I am planning on moving into an apartment with my fiance as soon as possible this year because he has helicopter parents as well. His are actually worse than mine. They monitor everything he does and even chose his college classes for him. They wonder why he doesn't act mature, but it's like, really? No clue why? Even my brothers have told me I need to get out as soon as possible. They know the struggle and can see that I haven't matured enough because of their parenting. I've never been able to do anything without them knowing every detail. For now, my fiance and I grin and bear with it. When it gets too much we rant to each other and spend more time at campus or work. It's all you really can do sometimes. It's extremely annoying and your child will resent you, not to mention a weak parent-child relationship with the base of mistrust and no privacy. It became more manageable for my husband once he moved out of home. She's still absolutely a helicopter over our toddler, and we've come to understand her helicopter behavior was about her anxiety, so we do our best to keep her informed, within reason, about our whereabouts. But really, we are adults, so she doesn't need to supervise us or have contact with our employees' friends anymore. We just get used to her stalking our Facebook and Instagram. I don't moved 2,000 miles away the day I turned 18 and never looked back. I had ended up going NC with my parents for 5 years, and in the past couple years we've reconnected. I've noticed that they're trying to be more conscious of privacy and boundaries, not only with me but the rest of my siblings. But it's still kind of awkward. Sometimes part of having helicopter parents is getting good at lying and hiding who you truly are. So it's hard to get out of the mindset that they're mistrustful of you or disappointed in you. I do think they've attempted to evolve though, and it's nice to see. I keep my distance and we sometimes go days without talking. It's for the best. But our relationship is pretty good now. It helped to understand what was fueling it. When my mom was a teenager, there was a quadruple murder in our family where her aunt killed her 4 cousins. So I kind of made sense why my mom suddenly became hyper paranoid when she had a kid of her own. Once I put the puzzle pieces together, it became easier to separate the behavior from the person. I'm 17, but the plan is wait for them to pay for college, get a job and place of my own, and reduce contact drastically. Only 2 to 4 visits a year, occasional phone calls but no more than once a month. Enough to check in with them but not be biased around. No unannounced visits will be tolerated. Careful, they'll use the fact they pay for college as a means of control. Low contact. If you give them an inch they take a mile. I just try to seem as put together and stable as possible when around them. It is absolutely exhausting. You have been visited by the healthy spirit of exercise. Boy, you will burn all calories today. If you comment blessed be the health hound, like and subscribe, you magnificent person.